The sky over Viridia was on fire. Thick black smoke rose from the city below, blotting out the sun. The air tasted of ash and ozone. The low, constant thrum of alien engines was a sound that never stopped. It was the sound of the world ending. Leo moved through the broken streets. He kept low, his boots crunching on shattered glass and hot metal. His militia uniform was torn and stained with soot. He was alone. His unit was gone. The last transmission was just static. His rifle felt heavy in his hands. He only had half a magazine left. He had to get to the mountains. The rumor was a whisper, a ghost of hope. A resistance pocket, hiding in the northern peaks. It was his only chance. A low hum made him freeze. He pressed himself into the collapsed doorway of a shop. A Cathar hunter squad moved down the street. They were tall, their armored shells a glossy black. Their movements were sharp and insect-like. They scanned the area with clicking sounds and glowing red sensors. They were looking for heat, for movement, for life. Leo held his breath. His heart hammered against his ribs. One wrong move, one flicker of body heat, and he was dead. The hunters passed by, their heavy steps fading. He let out a shaky breath and pushed on. The way to the foothills was a nightmare of open ground and burning wrecks. He had to cross a wide avenue. It was a kill zone. He saw the bodies of other militia members lying where they fell. He gathered his courage and ran. He was halfway across when a high-pitched whine cut the air. A shot. It was not the loud crack of a human gun. It was a sharp, precise sound, like a needle tearing through cloth. It came from the high cliffs to the north. Behind him, one of the Cathar hunters exploded. A cloud of black chitin and green fluid sprayed across the street. The other hunters spun around, their weapons raised, confused. Another needle shot. A second hunter fell. Leo did not wait. He ran. He did not look back. He sprinted for the cover of the rocks, his lungs burning. The hidden shooter had given him an opening. He scrambled up the rocky slope, his hands scraping on the stone. The coordinates from the rumor led him to a narrow crack in the cliff face, almost invisible behind a thick purple vine. He pushed through it. He found himself in a cave. It was not a military base. The air was cool and smelled of oil and something strange, something metallic and sweet. The walls were lined with workbenches. They were covered in tools and pieces of technology he did not recognize. Wires snaked across the floor. In the center of the cave lay the torn-apart body of a Cathar scout walker, its inner workings exposed like a mechanical corpse. A woman stood over a bench. She was not young. Her face was lined, her hair streaked with gray. She wore simple, stained fatigues. She was fitting a crystal shard into a metal barrel that looked like it was made from scavenged alien parts. Leo stood there, panting, his rifle hanging loosely in his grip. He was a soldier, looking for his army. "Are you with the resistance?" he asked, his voice rough from smoke and fear. The woman Helen looked up from her work. Her eyes were the color of steel and held a calm that was deeper than peace. It was the calm of a predator. She looked at him, then at the monitor on her wall. It showed the Cathar fleet, a swarm of dark shapes against the planet, she said, her voice quiet but clear. "They're with me." She turned her gaze back to him. "I've been studying them. Now it's time they learned about us." Leo stared at the woman. Her words made no sense. The Cathar fleet filled the sky. They had crushed the colony in a day. And she talked like she was the one in charge. "Learned about us?" Leo said. "They'll learn we're all dead." Helen ignored him. She picked up a rifle from her workbench. It was a strange mix of human stock and Cathar crystalline parts. They rely on a network, a shared mind, makes them fast. It also makes them blind to things outside their pattern. She tossed him the rifle. It was lighter than he expected. "Their personal shields stop our bullets. These shards are tuned to a frequency that ignores the shield. It goes right through." Leo turned the weapon over in his hands. It felt wrong. It felt alien. "One gun won't stop them. It's not about the gun," Helen said. She walked to a large screen. A map of the planet appeared. A single Cathar ship, larger than the others, was highlighted in red. "It's about the pattern. That is their command ship. The Archon is there. It's the central node for their psionic network." She turned to him. Her plan was simple and insane. "We go there. We get inside. We hijack the main relay. We cut off the head. The body below will fall into chaos. Leo laughed. It was a dry, scared sound. Go there? How? They'll shoot us down before we get close? Helen led him deeper into the cave. In a hidden hangar sat a Cathar dropship. It was smaller than the others, its hull scarred and patched with human welding. They used these for casualty retrieval. You mostly ignore them. He looked like a wounded bird returning to the nest. The plan was taking shape in his mind. It was a suicide mission. But it was a plan. It was more than anyone else had. They boarded the dropship. The inside smelled of antiseptic and something sour. The controls were adapted with human interfaces wired into the alien console. Helen piloted. She moved with a calm certainty that was more frightening than fear. They lifted off. The ship rose silently from the cave. The burning landscape fell away below them. Then they were in the blackness of space. The Cathar fleet hung ahead of them, a wall of jagged living metal. Stay calm, Helen said, her voice low. The identification beacon is broadcasting their friendly signal. Just another injured ship coming home. Alien voices crackled over the comms. Harsh clicking sounds. Leo gripped his strange rifle. He could not breathe. A patrol ship drifted past them, so close he could see the pores in its dark hull. It did not challenge them. They moved deeper into the fleet. The massive command ship loomed ahead, a city of spikes and shadows. An opening appeared in its side of hangar bay. Helen guided their ship toward it.
Ow.
They passed through the energy field. The inside of the bay was vast and dimly lit. Other damaged ships sat in neat rows. It was working. Their ship settled onto the deck with a soft thud. The bay was quiet. Too quiet. Helen powered down the engines. Ready? She asked. Leo nodded, his throat tight. The ship's ramp hissed open. They stepped out, weapons raised. The cold air of the bay smelled of ozone and iron. They were not alone. A full Cathar shock team stood in a perfect semicircle, their weapons aimed and ready. They had been waiting. Taller Cathar, its armor more ornate, stepped forward, its multifaceted eyes fixed on Helen. Its translator produced a guttural, but perfect English. The lost specimen has returned. It raised a clawed hand toward her. The Archon wishes to resume his examination. The Cathar commander's words hung in the cold air. Leo did not understand, but the meaning was clear. This was a trap. Helen moved first. She fired her rifle. A crystal shard tore through the commander's head. The silence shattered into chaos. Alien weapons fired bolts of green energy. They sizzled past Leo's head. He ducked behind a support pillar and returned fire. His new rifle kicked softly. A Cathar soldier staggered back, a hole in its chest. To the core, Helen yelled. She was not running away. She was pushing forward, deeper into the ship. Leo followed. They ran down a wide corridor. The walls were a dark, pulsating organic metal. The air hummed with a low energy. Alarms began to blare, a harsh screeching sound. Cathar soldiers poured from side passages. Helen and Leo fought as they moved. They shot, they dodged, they kept going. Leo's heart was a drum in his ears. He focused on Helen's back. She moved with a terrible purpose. She knew where she was going. They reached a massive door. It was sealed. Helen slammed a device onto the control panel. Sparks flew. The door slid open with a grinding shriek. The room beyond was vast. It was the heart of the ship. A giant, pulsing orb of light hung in the center. Tendrils of energy connected it to the walls and ceiling. This was the psionic relay, and standing before it was the Archon. It was taller than the others. Its body was less armor and more a robe of living tissue. Its face was a mask of calm intelligence. Its eyes held no anger, only a deep curiosity. Leo raised his rifle. Helen put a hand on his arm, stopping him. The Archon's voice filled the room. It was smooth, without a translator. Helen, you have exceeded projections. Your ingenuity is remarkable. You murdered my team, Helen said. Her voice was flat and cold. Studied, the Archon corrected. We learn, we absorb. We perfect. Your species has a unique ... ferocity. It is a useful trait. We will add it to our own. Leo felt a cold dread. This was not a war. It was a harvest. The escape was part of the experiment, the Archon continued. To see what a human mind, under extreme pressure, could create with limited access to our science, your weapons, your tactics, all valuable data. Helen stood very still. You used me. We refined you, the Archon said. Join us. Help us integrate your species. It is the only path to your preservation. He gestured, and a wave of invisible force hit Leo. It felt like his brain was on fire. He cried out and fell to his knees, his rifle clattering away. The Archon looked at Helen. Your choice is simple. Serve or watch him die as we extract the information from his primitive mind. Helen looked from the Archon to the helpless Leo. Her face was a stone mask. Then her lips curled into a thin, cold smile. You wanted to see what I could build with your tools, she said. Her fingers moved on a small device on her wrist. But you never wondered what I built with mine. A deep shudder ran through the ship. The pulsating light of the relay flickered wildly. The hum of energy became a screech. The Archon staggered, his calm broken by confusion. The entire ship's power grid failed. The relay room plunged into darkness, lit only by frantic red emergency lights. The red emergency lights painted the room in blood-colored shadows. The great psionic relay was dark and silent. From outside the chamber, they heard screams, not human screams. These were the shrieks of the Cathar, raw and full of pain. Helen's virus was not a bomb. It was a poison for the mind. It had flooded their network. The Cathar connected to it were now trapped in a crashing system. Their shared mind was breaking. The Archon stood alone. His connection to his people was severed. The calm scientist was gone. Now he was just a cornered animal. He lunged at Helen, his claws extended. Leo shook off the pain in his head, saw the Archon move. He acted without thinking. He threw himself forward, tackling the alien leader around the waist. They crashed to the floor. The Archon was strong, threw Leo off like a child. Leo hit the wall hard, felt a rib crack. The Archon stood over him, raising a clawed hand for the killing strike. A shot rang out. A crystal shard buried itself in the Archon's shoulder. He roared in pain and surprise. Helen stood with her rifle smoking. She had used the distraction. The Archon turned on her. He was fast, incredibly fast. He swiped at her. She dodged, but his claws ripped through her fatigues, drawing blood from her arm. She dropped her rifle. It was a brutal, close fight. Helen was smaller, weaker, but she was smarter. She used the dark room to her advantage. She ducked under his swings. She kicked a tool from the floor into her hand. It was a long, sharp piece of metal, part Cathar alloy, part human forge work. The Archon charged her, his rage making him careless. Helen did not move away. She moved into the charge. She met him with the metal spike held in both hands. The Archon impaled himself on the weapon, stopped, his body shuddering. He looked down at the metal protruding from his chest. Green fluid bubbled from his mouth. He looked at Helen, his intelligent eyes wide with disbelief. He could not understand. His perfect logic had failed. What power? ... double quotes. He gasped, his voice a wet whisper. What power forged your sword? Helen stood firm, her hands still on the spike. She did not look at the dying alien. Her eyes were on Leo, who was struggling to breathe on the floor. Her voice was soft, meant only for him, a raw truth in the dark. Patience and sweat, she whispered. The Archon's audio sensors captured the words. Ow. Then his body went limp. He slid off the spike and collapsed on the floor. Silence fell in the relay room. The only sound was the distant, fading screams of the Cathar crew. They had done it. Command ship was dead. The invasion below was leaderless. Helen rushed to Leo's side. She knelt, her hands checking his injuries. His face was pale. We did it, he breathed, a weak smile on his face. We won. Helen looked at his young face, full of hope and relief. She looked at the dead Archon. She remembered his words. This was all an experiment, a test. Her own words came back to her. The virus had been too easy to plant. The security codes had been too simple to crack. The Archon, a being of immense intelligence, had been defeated to Isley. Leo saw the change in her eyes. The hard-won victory faded, replaced by a new, colder fear. It was too easy, Helen said, her voice hollow. He let me win. She looked up at the dark ceiling, as if she could see through the ship to the stars beyond. This was just another test. Helen dragged Leo through the dead ship. The corridors were silent tombs. Cathar bodies lay where they fell, their shared mind gone. They found a small escape pod. Helen shoved Leo inside and launched it. The pod tore away from the command ship. It plunged into the atmosphere, burning like a falling star. It crashed in a wooded valley far from the burning city. Leo was badly hurt. Helen tended to his wounds with rough, efficient hands. Then she took a small beacon from the pod. She activated it. A single repeating message went out on all human frequencies. The Cathar can be beaten. I have the key. Rally to my signal. They did not have to wait long. The survivors came, first in ones and twos, then in small groups. They were militia soldiers with empty guns. They were army regulars with haunted eyes. They found Helen waiting for them in a clearing. Leo propped up beside her. She did not give them a speech. She gave them work. She showed them how to build the rifles. She taught them how to mix the chemicals to grow the crystal shards. She explained the Cathar network, their weakness, their pattern. She showed them how to strike and fade, how to be ghosts. She was not a general. She was a teacher, a forge master. She moved among them, her arm bandaged, her voice steady. She corrected a grip. She explained a circuit. She turned their fear into focus. Leo watched her. He saw the change in the others. Their shoulders straightened. Their eyes lost the hollow look of defeat. They were no longer victims waiting to die. They were students of a terrible, necessary truth. In orbit, the Cathar fleet was not fleeing. It was regrouping. The ships moved into a new, tighter formation. A single, larger vessel, darker than the others, moved to the front. It was a new command ship. The test was over. The real war was about to begin. Helen stood on a rocky outcrop overlooking the camp. Ow! Dozens of men and women trained with their new weapons. The air buzzed with the sound of their drills and the low hum of the fleet above. She looked at their faces. They were dirty. They were tired, but they were ready. She raised her custom rifle high above her head. The movement caught every eye. The camp fell silent. She did not shout. Her voice carried across the clearing, clear and hard as steel. They think we are specimens to be studied. She swept her arm toward the sky. So let's teach them the one lesson they failed to collect. She brought the rifle down, gripping it tight, aiming it at the stars. Let's show them human fury.